No, I mean, allegedly the pandemic's over because all of the White House press corps got
Was
vaccinated.
vaccinated. Have you been
Yeah, and
vaccinated?
not yet. I'm close though. I
I got
am
my first
eligible
dose. I got my first
in
dose.
Illinois. I'm eligible, which is good.
That's good.
And I've got family that are being vaccinated already. So, what'd you think?
I got my first dose and I was like relieved when I did, and it didn't give me any issues. Probably the second dose will, because like most of my immediate family has been vaccinated, and like all the women, the second dose, like, made them feel like ill for like 24 hours. Um, so I'll get my second dose probably like next week, but I'm like relieved to be vaccinated. I am really horrified that these like rich countries have not only like hoarded vaccines. Like I understand wanting to vaccinate your own population first, but the US and UK and EU have been blocking this proposal by countries in the global south, India, like India and Brazil, to waive the patent rights
Hmm.
for these vaccines so that they can produce them cheaply in their own countries, because they have the factory production to like factory capability to do so. Um, and the US, EU, and UK have been blocking that. So it's actually really dangerous. And I don't understand the thinking other than just pure greed and letting pharmaceutical companies make government decisions, because the longer and more this virus spreads, the more opportunities there are for variants to like for mutations that create variants that are going to be vaccine resistant. So it's actually it's a real danger in Brazil right now, which has, I think, the widest spread in the world at the moment. It's completely uncontrolled. There's no real good vaccination program taking place, and on top of that, the US government like pressured Brazil not to buy the Russian vaccine. So like on
Mm-hmm.
top of not giving them your Western vaccine and like blocking the ability to make it, you're also blocking their ability to buy a cheaper vaccine from Russia because of geopolitical posturing. So I hope like a part of me is really relieved about the vaccine, and I feel safer because of it, and I'm glad other people are getting vaccinated. But at the same time, I just like, the part of me is also really nervous. Like, what if there's another variant because of your stupidity that is going to be vaccine resistant, and then we just end up back in the same place we were. So,
Right, exactly. In
yeah.
fact, I recalled, and I just want to check while you were talking there. This Brazil variant that has gotten a lot of attention, which is similar to the one in South Africa that has received a lot of news. It just hit Michigan with the first
Oh,
case.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
So what you're describing is a very real problem because if we allowed everyone to have vaccines without concern for patents and
Profits and profits.
corporate profits, then we wouldn't have to worry about the spread of the variants because people could be that are spreading it could be vaccinated already. So I imagine
I mean,
that's not a connection that I expect, Gretchen Whitmer and others in
mhm,
Michigan to make, but it's
no.
one that that's one that we should make.
The U. I mean, I there was the New York Times has actually been covering this quite well, like just the numbers. And I yesterday there was a piece that said that 0.1% of vaccines have been administered in developing countries.
Mm.
0.1%. Like the vast majority of vaccines are just going to these wealthy countries where the pharmaceutical companies that are making them are based. But also, it's like the other thing is, I've heard the argument from some liberals I know being like, yeah, but like, can't they just get the Chinese and Russian vaccine? And like, yeah, they can, but what you don't understand is there's 7 billion people in the world, and the more vaccines there are, the better. Like the more vaccines there are that being produced, the better, the more people can get vaccinated. Russia and China can't take care of the whole world. Um, and it's just, I think, a reflection of the disgustingly unequal like a global economic order that we have, and it's once again being played out with this pandemic, where you're going to have these developing countries where you know if you think about it, like Lebanon, for example. Lebanon is a country of like 7 million people at most, maybe 6 million. That's not a lot of people. In the US, that many people are getting vaccinated quite fast. You know, the US has vaccinated, I think, over like 150 million people last I checked, and that was like a week or so ago. So that's a lot of people that have been given their first dose in the US. So why can't you just add a few million people to that? Like, you know what I mean? And instead, in Lebanon, I think there's been 50,000 people vaccinated. Like,
Mhm.
because they can't, they don't have the funds. They have an economic collapse. They don't have the money to necessarily buy a lot of vaccines. And their vaccine rollout didn't even start until late February. Whereas in the
Mhm.
US, you've had vaccinations started in early January. So
Mhm.
it's just like that's how it's playing out around the world. And it just shows like, I mean, it's even in a global pandemic, you can't just put like getting done with the pandemic over pharmaceutical company profits. Like, really? Like, what the
Yeah.
hell is we have such a fucked up system. It's incredible. But
Though
anyway.
I will add that there is a widespread colonial attitude that means that these people who are at the top are going to get the vaccines first. And it has been the case. But what that also shows is, the developing countries not getting it, those discussions about not vaccinating undocumented immigrants. I mean, we actually have to have debates about whether people who
So
don't
fucking
have
stupid.
documentation should have it, even though it's plainly obvious that regardless of whether they would be from this country or not, they can still spread the virus. It doesn't
Yeah.
have any bearing on like their citizenship status doesn't stop them from science.
It's
And
yeah, it's incredible, and it's,
and
oh, go ahead, finish your
well, and the other
uh,
thing I was going to add here is I was doing some work on a story which I think I will mention before the show's over since it received so little attention and can connect back to the Julian Assange case. But I was looking at the prison population in the United States and how many have been vaccinated. And the Bureau of Prisons celebrates that they vaccinated like 8,000 plus inmates and staff.
that's
But
nothing.
there are several, at least in we're talking about federal custody. I mean, when you look at the prison population, people talk about mass incarceration being 2 million plus people. A lot of those are state facilities. There's 170,000 plus people in the federal prison system, and
Jesus.
only around 8 to 9,000 people, inmates and staff.
Those are, like,
Like
the
inmates
easiest
and
people
staff.
that's, like, the
Yeah,
easiest people to vaccinate too because they're, like, accessible to you. Like,
they're right there.
they're warehoused right there, and they're under the control of, like, state or federal authorities. Those are literally the easiest people to vaccinate. Whereas, like, people who aren't in prison, you have to, like, have them sign up for in a system and then have them come to a place 2 times for most cases. It's just so absurd, and what's really frustrating about this is this vaccine was foundationally funded by the public, right? By, like, taxpayers in these countries, Germany, the US. Um, so it's on top of being publicly funded, denying access. Like, I've had so many like, arguments with liberals about this. Like, liberals, not right wingers, liberals who think this way, where they're like, well, we fund it, so why should we even give it to like like, what the hell? And it's like, okay, again, like, if there's a variant that arises in one of these developing countries that you think are less worthy of this vaccine, that's going to fuck you too. You should understand that at this point by the fact that a virus that was on one side of the world then was on another side of the world so quickly. Like, you can't hide from it just because of geography, right? So there's that aspect to it. But also, why are your public so wealthy? Why are your countries so wealthy and able to even fund vaccine research? Because they stole and, like, raped and pillaged the third world. Like, people forget this. The developing world isn't poor because it's like backwards. It's poor because the global north is a parasite and, like, literally ruling elites of Europe and then America, came to the third world and stole its wealth and enslaved its people. Literally, like, stole its wealth. Until this day, they back governments that are shitty to make sure that those people can never profit off of the resources in their country so it can continue to be extracted. Where do you think all your wealth is coming from? Like, where was it created? Like, there literally is this mentality, even among liberals in the global north, that they live in superior countries because something about those countries' culture is just like better. No, It is a country that is industrialized and developed literally because it stole. Like, and that includes the
Mhm.
Scandinavian countries that you guys all put on a pedestal. Those countries got their wealth from colonial theft. And it's just, and it's unbelievable to me. It is believable, but it's just when you have these conversations with these liberals who are like, we need Biden in office so that so that there's like not a mean person like Trump there anymore. Actually, if you scratch a liberal, you know, you scratch them hard enough, a little right winger pops out of there. And it's really frustrating. So, are you enjoying listening to this show? You should be. And if you are, you'll want access to our premium content, which you can find at Rockfin. Kevin, tell them about Rockfin.
Yes, we're up on rockfin.com. You can find us there at this URL, rockfin.com/unauthorized dis. And this channel is where we're going to get away from the demonetization that is happening on YouTube. We think it's going to allow us to grow our show and bring in new subscribers like you, people who are coming to this show for the first time, or maybe you haven't become subscribers yet and you were looking for an opportunity. And here, if you come and subscribe to our show at Rockfin, you won't just get access to us, you'll get access to other people who are making shows in the same space politically as us. People like Lee Camp, Graham Elwood, Jackson Hinkle, Richard Medhurst, Ron Placone, as well as Jimmy Dore. And some of these people have been guests on Unauthorized Disclosure.
So, join us on Rockfin, subscribe, get access to our premium content, and you can hear all those other cool people too.